I'm so sorry. She came out of nowhere. I didn't see her. It was you, the father says. I'm so sorry. Oh, dear God, the mother says, and she sits down. It was all ice out there. I wasn't going very fast. You were going fast enough, weren't you? The mother says testily. How long have you had your license? I'm 26, Cynthia says. Then there's no excuse. No, you're right. There isn't, Cynthia says. I wish more than anything in the world I could do something. I wish I could go back wherever she is and do something. She's growing upset. I really didn't want to bother you, but I'd like to stay here until Tiffany wakes up. Father studies her face, then looks over at his wife. They're registering the fact that Cynthia looks quite a bit like their daughter. I want to make sure she's all right, Cynthia says. He purses his lip and nods. I'm just so very, 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 very sorry this happened, she says, close to tears now. His expression softens. I believe you, he says. The doctor emerges with an update for the parents. The good news, he tells them, is that the CAT scan showed no skull fracture and no evidence of internal bleeding. She isn't awake yet, he says, but her pupils are reactive, which suggests she probably simply had a concussion. So she's going to be all right, the father says. He's trying to read the doctor's face, which reveals only an affable competence. We'll have to wait and see. There might be some bruising to the brain that the CAT scan didn't catch, he says, and adds that they may need to take her to another hospital for an MRI. They'll have to keep watching her closely. He says Tiffany's left kneecap is shattered, probably from the impact of the car, and her left shoulder was dislocated, but we did a pretty good job of putting it back in place. The father nods. We appreciate what you're doing for us, he says, and then he watches as the doctor walks back towards a nurse station and looks over some forms. It's a record night for accidents. Already there have been 3 other serious ones in and around town, including a fatal, Cynthia learns, which is why the police are so slow in getting here. It occurs to her that if enough terrible things happen out on the roads tonight, they'll probably simply forget about her, though she knows how wrong it is to hope for this. And really, she just wants everyone to be all right and sleeping in their bedrooms at home, which is where she should have been long ago. Over the next hour and a half, there's a fire, a heart attack, a bar fight, a tractor-trailer wreck, more blood and broken noses, more people being wheeled in, and more waiting. Cynthia talks with the girl's father, a short, sandy-haired man with a sturdy build of a wrestling coach. His eyes pucker at the corners with little wrinkles. She goes out every night with that dog, a mile or 2. She likes to get on the back roads past the edge of town and let Lemon find their way back. One time they were away for 4 hours. Little force of nature, that one, he says, meaning Tiffany. She's going to need some rehab, I guess. Maybe a lot, but she'll get through it. One of our others I'd worry about, but she'll be just fine. She better be, her mother says, but not in a way that's directed at Cynthia. By 2:30, they still haven't heard anything, which the father says is a good sign. If it was bad news, they would have heard by now. You think that's true, the mother asks Cynthia, as though she knows these things? I think so, yes, she says. She kneels down and rubs at Lemon's belly. At around 3 in the morning, the mother tells Cynthia she should go home and get some sleep and come visit them tomorrow when Tiffany's home if she wants. The mood's hopeful, though no one has come to give them an update on the girl's condition. The police arrive then and ask Cynthia questions about the accident. Their faces show the strain of a long night. Maybe it's because they've seen her talking warmly with the girl's parents, or because the dog's resting his head on her lap, or because they're not very good at their jobs, but it's all quite casual. They take down her phone number and address and they leave. 9 times out of 10, they would have administered a breathalyzer. This is the 10th time. When they're gone, Cynthia feels almost disappointed. She excuses herself and then wanders around the hospital. She goes to the lunchroom and buys a packet of Lornadunes from a vending machine. She eats one under the droning of the fluorescent lights and throws the rest away. At around 4:30, she volunteers to take Lemon for a walk outside. The streets are silent until a snowplow makes a wake of slush on its path across town. Has it gotten warmer? She thinks of heading home, but what would she do? It's too early to call anyone, and there'd be too many questions. She tries to imagine the heady privacy of the girl's walks with Lemon and what she thought about all those hours she was out of her parents' house. She knows where they probably went, to the park behind the high school, or the yards near the abandoned glove factory, or to the cemetery where Cynthia would go with her friends to get high. If you never left, this place could kill you, Cynthia used to believe before she took off for college in Boston. She'd return to take care of her mother when she was sick, and she will leave again soon, she thinks. She walks a mile or so in the white with the dog bounding ahead of her and the moonlight glinting off the snow, then halts abruptly when she spots a car heading at them from the opposite direction. The car turns before it reaches her, and when it vanishes from sight, Cynthia thinks, I need to get back. The wind loosens a clump of ice from a nearby tree branch, and when it lands, it makes a startling sound as though someone dropped a box of dishes. She walks the mile back, then into the hospital and over to the nurse's station. Lemon tugs at his leash. Is there any news about Tiffany, she asks. She hears the distant sound of a child laughing, then realizes it's the television. "Oh dear," says the nurse, who begun her shift when Cynthia left on the walk. She's from the islands, someplace like Barbados, with an accent from there. She says, "Nobody went to find you?" Compassionately, because she believes Cynthia is an older sister. "Beautiful girl," the nurse says, then chucks her tongue. "Was it a hit and run?" "In a sense," Cynthia said. "Well, I pray to God they get him." "Me too." She peers into the waiting room where Tiffany's parents are still conferring with one of the doctors. It is the saddest moment she's ever experienced. What happened within Tiffany's brain, she will learn, is an epidural hemorrhage, a minute tear in one of the blood vessels surrounding the organ, which was caused by a breakdown of tissue and was missed by the CAT scan. It opened up and flooded her brain. "Go and be with your parents," the nurse says. Cynthia's trembling, as though asked to leap from a plane in flight. "Go on in there, dear," the nurse says. There is nothing else to do. They glance at her without the slightest enmity, and so she steps fearfully toward them into the purity of their grief. So, thanks.